Hi, I'm back. It's been a ridiculously long hiatus. But after everything that's happened in the past couple years, my opinions are kind of overflowing. So you get to hear them again. Today I want to talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, which to me just highlights what a travesty our judicial system is, really. So, Kyle Rittenhouse, well, what starts it all, actually, is how we've really been highlighting police brutality against people of color in the last few years. And it kind of started with George Floyd, and that was not too far from where I live, actually. And when that happened, they boarded up, like, there's a holiday not too far from my house. They boarded that up. There was a Cub that they boarded up. Those are both Midwestern things, I'm pretty sure. But that kind of sparked a lot of anger that had been built up for a long time. And it ended in rioting, a lot of people say, or others say protesting. I think it was a combination of both. And so Jacob Blake, I think was his name. Let me look it up, make sure. Yeah. Okay, so Jacob Blake was an unarmed black man shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin by the police, I think 7 times in the side. And he's paralyzed now. Thank God he's alive, but he's paralyzed. So, kind of on par with everything else that had happened. Now people are pissed off. And they're, again, focusing and highlighting on this issue that's been a problem for a while. So after Jacob Blake was shot, there was a bunch of groups online that, my favorite phrase that I've found for them is Al-Qaeda, because they are basically self-proclaimed militant groups that saw it as their duty to protect the local businesses. So, Kyle Rittenhouse, at the time 17 years old, very strong opinions, very strong right-wing conservative opinions, posts all the time about it on social media. A couple weeks prior to this, he had been at another event that was kind of similar, and he made a statement where he said, "I wish I had my AR-15 because I would shoot all of them." Okay, so this is the kid that we're dealing with, literally a kid at the time. Pretty sure he buys the gun illegally because he was 17, or obtains it illegally in some way. He drives from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Mind you, he's not from Wisconsin. He went there. He went there to, what he says is to basically help police and provide medical care, which he had no skills for either of those things, so why he thought he could help, let's just say, was very politically driven, because he was part of these groups already online. So now he's in trial. He has numerous charges against him. Basically, what it boils down to is homicide versus self-defense. And I watched a clip where the prosecutor brought up that piece of evidence that I mentioned, where a couple of weeks prior to actually shooting people, Kyle Rittenhouse had mentioned that he wished he had his AR-15 so he could shoot people. The judge had dismissed this piece of evidence. And so when I first saw the video, the judge seems really reasonable. Like, everyone was saying how biased he was, and I thought he was being really reasonable. I kind of looked at the prosecutor like he was being an idiot. And then the more I looked into this, the more I realized that the judge kind of has been interfering with his own bias in this since the beginning. So the judge, also conservative, he, first of all, wouldn't allow the people who got shot to be called victims because he thought that that would create bias in a self-defense case. Second of all, he didn't allow any of the posted political shit that Kyle had to be used as evidence. He didn't let any political things be involved because he said he didn't want it to be about politics. The problem is that the whole thing was about politics. These groups have really strong feelings against Black Lives Matter, and they perceived that those people were going to be Black Lives Matter. They were already amped up, This 17-year-old kid has all kinds of, adrenaline and everything running through his system. Anyway, so I'll go back to the judge in a second. But what happened at the protest was Kyle, in all of his glory, was walking around with this AR-15, which, first of all, why do you think you need a military-style rifle if you're going to go? I mean, wouldn't a pistol suffice? I guess I don't know enough about guns, but I just feel like he was asking for trouble being there to begin with, because he kind of appointed himself a vigilante with the rest of them. And it started at a car dealership. Something was happening there. There was some kind of scuffle between him and Rosenbaum, which is the first person he shot. Rosenbaum went at him, ran for him, and Kyle's reaction, which is totally emotionally unregulated, was to shoot him. And after this happens, he freaks out because, again, he's 17. He's very clearly emotionally dysregulated, and he starts running away. I guess he calls someone on the phone and says, I just killed somebody. And as he's running away, the second person involved, what is his name? Anthony Huber, comes, and basically all he saw was some person shoot another person. So he goes after the guy with the gun, who is Kyle Rittenhouse. And as he does this, he's holding a skateboard and reaches for Kyle's gun, and Kyle shoots him because he's on the ground at this point. And then after that, he shoots another person who... So once Kyle's on the ground, he basically just shoots Huber, killing him, who really was just trying to prevent what he thought was an active shooter based on testimony from his girlfriend or fiance. And then he blindly shoots and hits Gage. And Gage gets injured, but is not dead, thank God. But he's had a lot of issues from this. He got shot in the arm and lost most of his bicep and has had tons of surgeries for it. Anyways, so again, the main argument boils down to, did he kill these people unjustly, or was it self-defense? And number one, you deliberately put yourself in what you believed in your mind was going to be a riotous event. You brought a military gun to that event. And, what did he expect was going to happen? He wasn't trained in any of these things. So that, to start off with, is a problem. The fact that he was... confident enough or encouraged enough to do this is the first problem. One argument that I've seen come up a lot too is that Rosenbaum, it turns out, was a pedophile. I looked into this because I thought maybe it was one of those instances where the guy's 18 and the girl's 16, where they're really close in age, but it's just that legal limit, but it wasn't. It's horrible, unspeakable things. And he had 11 counts of it. And he was a disgusting POS. I totally agree with that. That being said, number one, he did his time for those crimes, and whether that fits the crimes or not, is a whole nother discussion. But number one, he was tried and took the consequences that they saw fit. And number two, we do not want 17-year-olds with guns being the ones making that call of moral justice. That's a horrifying thought, to think about a bunch of Kyle Rittenhouses all over the country acting this way. There's a reason that vigilantes are discouraged, and that's because we have a system that tries to be as neutral as possible. This is affected by money, much like most things in the United States, but the system is meant to be as neutral as possible. It needs improvements, obviously, but it is certainly better than any person walking around the streets making the call themselves to shoot somebody. And also, at the time, Kyle Rittenhouse didn't know this about Rosenbaum. So while I can't necessarily say that I think it's a bad thing that he's gone based on what he did, I still don't think it was his call to make or his decision to make, because at that time, this guy was just an unarmed person running in his direction. Let's just go back to the judge for a second, because I keep thinking about that video that I watched where he is reaming the prosecutor because the prosecutor brought forward evidence that was previously denied, and he did it in kind of a roundabout way because it turns out the judge has been doing pretty much everything he can to block any real evidence that would make Kyle seem guilty. And I think that what I perceived as the prosecution being just really shitty at his job was actually a judge who is not allowing a fair trial and not allowing fair evidence. You can tell in every clip I watch pretty much that the judge is kind of almost babying Kyle, like he maybe isn't understanding or letting the full severity of the situation sink in. I don't know. I just feel like he is coddling him in some way. But anyways, that's not my job to decide. Wondering what you guys think about it. There's so much more, but I just didn't want to make this video hella long since I'm just coming back to this. But yeah, they're deliberating now. So I'll be interested to see what's going to happen. They already had to deploy a bunch of extra security to the Kenosha area because of this. And either way, I think there's going to be issues because it's just another polarizing thing that we've been dealing with. And I don't know about you guys, but I am just fucking exhausted. I am just exhausted all the time. Ever since ever since 2020 happened, I am just exhausted. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Thanks for stopping by.